My name is Marcus Davis, and this is my testament. If you are reading these words, know that I am already dead, or something infinitely worse. I no longer know what befell my crew. I am no longer certain I remain human. I am marooned upon a planet whose sky is fractured glass, and whose stars are the rotting, lidless eyes of long-dead gods. This place should not exist. It began 3 weeks ago, when the survey vessel Eos was seized by a gravitational anomaly while charting a remote sector of the galaxy. I still see the absolute horror on the faces of my crew as every system failed in cascading succession, as sirens wailed like distorted screams echoing through the metal viscera of the ship. We fought desperately to correct our trajectory, but it was far too late. We were dragged into a maelstrom of black light that spun faster and faster, until all dissolved into blinding white. When consciousness returned, I lay upon arid, cracked earth coated with a thin layer of luminescent dust that gave off a faint, corpse-blue glow. The air tasted of ozone and something metallic, something alive. Staggering to my feet, I called for the others. No answer came, only a silence so complete it pressed against the eardrums like water at crushing depth. Then I saw them. Rising into the distance were impossible structures, twisted towers fashioned, it seemed, from interwoven bone, climbing until they vanished into dense, pulsating clouds. To gaze upon them too long induced a nauseating ache behind the eyes, as though their very geometry mocked the laws of creation. Between the towers, elongated shadows danced beneath a sourceless light. I walked toward them. There was nothing else to do. The ground beneath my boots was uneven, almost organic, breathing in slow, tidal rhythms. Soon I noticed sigils carved into the stone, symbols that shifted their shapes as I approached, perfect circles giving way to branching fractal infinities. When I touched one with the toe of my boot, a cold, insectal tingling crawled up my leg, as though the signs themselves were alive and watching. That was when I heard the first voice, not with my ears but inside the vault of my skull. A whisper at the threshold of comprehension, repeating words in a tongue both guttural and strangely melodic. I tried to ignore it, but it grew louder, more insistent. "There is a stranger here," it said, "yet now he is part of us." I found no speaker. Fear took root, but I kept walking. I needed answers. After hours, perhaps days, time here was a viscous, unreliable thing. I beheld a sight that froze the blood in my veins. From the shadows between the towers emerged a human figure. At first I dared hope it was a survivor from the Eos, but as it drew nearer, I understood how profoundly wrong it was. Its skin shimmered with radioactive verdigris. Its eyes were twin wells of absolute black that drank every photon of light. It wore rags that might once have been flesh, sewn together with sinew, and its mouth moved ceaselessly, murmuring prayers in a language I could not grasp. When at last it spoke aloud, the voice was a dissonant chord, as though several throats shared one larynx. "You came from the stars," it said, tilting its head at an angle no human spine should allow. "But the stars are dead. We worship their corpses." Before I could answer, more figures stepped from the darkness. They were all the same, once human, now something else. Their forms flickered, unstable. Too many arms, mouths opening and closing in impossible places, second heads sprouting from spines, blinking in perfect synchrony with the primary face. They encircled me yet did not touch me. Instead they began to sing, a hypnotic, multi-layered dirge that made my body tremble of its own accord. The words were incomprehensible, yet they carried a weight that sank into the marrow of the soul. One of them raised a hand and pointed to the heavens. I looked up. Those were not stars. They were celestial cadavers, remnants of primordial cosmic deities that had died and scarred the fabric of reality with their passing. Their vague silhouettes radiated a presence older and vaster than anything the human mind was meant to endure. "They chose us," said the leader, baring rows of teeth too sharp for any earthly predator. "They gave us their blessing, and now you too shall be blessed." They seized me before I could flee. My wrists were bound with ropes braided from human tendons that tightened whenever I struggled. I screamed, begged, but my words were drowned beneath the relentless chorus of their hymn. The last thing I saw before they dragged me into the shadow of the nearest tower was the sky splitting open like wet parchment, revealing something vast and formless hovering beyond. I write this in the full expectation of the inevitable. I will not escape. Whatever they intend for me is only the beginning. If you hear this, do not search for me. The darkness inside the tower was not mere absence of light. It was a living thing, pulsing, breathing around me. The tendon rope cinched tighter with every futile movement. My breath echoed, yet the walls swallowed sound as though offended by it. You feel it, do you not? The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. It belonged to the leader, Tian, his black eyes and razored mouth now visible again. The void watches you. I wished to scream, to fight, to do anything, but all that emerged was incoherent babble as reality began to liquefy around me. The walls melted into throbbing flesh veined with thick, arterial tubes that pulsed in an arrhythmic heartbeat. Then I understood. The tower was no edifice. It was an organism. They forced me to my knees before a central altar wrought from interlaced bones, some so colossal they could only have belonged to beings that never should have existed. At its apex rested a black crystal larger than a man's head, radiating a pallid light that hurt to perceive. It was directly linked to the dead stars outside, a conduit for the cosmic horror suspended above. One of the half-gods, its form so degraded it barely recalled humanity, approached bearing a knife of volcanic glass. Its face was a molten mask of whispering mouths. It sliced away my right sleeve and pressed my bare skin to the crystal. Pain beyond language tore through me. Every nerve felt flayed and rewoven with alien filament. Memories that were not mine flooded my mind. Visions of annihilated worlds, extinct civilizations, life forms that should never have been. I saw titanic entities of living shadow devouring planets in moments. And worse, I felt the attention of something immeasurably older, something that laughed with a sound like grinding continents. My body began to change. Skin took on a sickly blue-green luminescence. Threads of energy danced across it like living circuitry. My veins glowed. I was being rewritten, cell by cell, into something new and terrible. As the transformation neared completion, the half-gods sang louder, more urgently. The black crystal vibrated with a basso hum that rattled my bones. Then reality tore. A fissure opened above the altar like wet paper ripped by invisible hands. Through it I beheld a colossal figure, vaguely anthropomorphic, yet composed of writhing shadow and inverted light. Its face was a knot of questing tendrils, each ending in a randomly blinking eye. Its limbs were elongated claws capable of crushing mountains. Its body extended infinitely into dimensions my mind recoiled from comprehending. "This is Nictel," the leader whispered in reverent terror, "the devourer of worlds." Nictel did not move, yet its mere presence paralyzed every living thing. Its power bled through the fissure, compressing the air until lungs burned. The half-gods fell to their knees in ecstatic worship. "You are my children," the voice resounded directly inside every mind, deep and sepulchral as distant thunder. My shards scattered across the cosmos. The radiation of dead stars has touched you, and through it I am reborn. In that moment all became clear. This planet was nothing less than a nursery for Nictel. Every transformed soul was an extension of its consciousness. And now, with the black crystal as catalyst, it meant to fully manifest, using me as the final link. I tried to resist, but my body no longer obeyed. My arms rose of their own accord, joining the others. Energy poured into me, binding me irrevocably to the entity. "No," I whispered, voice trembling, "please." The weight was unbearable. Every cell felt torn apart and reassembled by cruel, invisible hands. My skin blazed with intense blue-green fire, pulsing in time with the crystal. I felt connected to something ancient, formless, omnipresent. The half-gods began to melt into the tower itself, their liquefying bodies absorbed into the throbbing walls. The fissure widened. Nyctel's amorphous bulk began to seep through, coiling tentacles leaving trails of absolute darkness, their touch corroding reality like acid. The tower crumbled, revealing the night sky, or what remained of it. The dead stars now hung close, watching with malignant curiosity as Nyctel returned. "He is here," the leader intoned, his own form collapsing into eyes and claws. "He is truly here." An irresistible force dragged me toward the crystal once more. When my flesh touched it again, agony and revelation fused. I saw worlds devoured, civilizations reduced to dust, titans consumed by Nyctel's infinite hunger. And I understood the final truth. Nyctel was not merely an entity. A fragment of its consciousness existed in every particle of the universe, patiently awaiting reunion. I was to be the catalyst of its complete ascension. Yet something within me still resisted, a last ember of humanity. I heard voices, Sarah, our chief scientist, Jake, our engineer. They were not dead. Their minds, too, had been imprisoned within the greater entity. "Resist," Sarah pleaded. "Do not let it take you entirely." "There is a way," Jake insisted. "Sacrifice yourself, seal the breach. It is the only way." Nyctel sensed my hesitation and flooded my mind with false promises of power and eternity. But I remembered Earth, black coffee on quiet mornings, music that once made the stars feel close rather than hostile. I remembered the people I had lost and those still living who must never face this horror. With a guttural cry, I reversed the flow of energy, driving it back into the black crystal. It blazed with unbearable intensity. The half-gods shrieked as their forms disintegrated. The fissure began to close, dragging Nyctel's colossal mass back into the void. It roared in fury, tentacles lashing. "You cannot stop me," it thundered. "I am eternal." "Not here," I answered, strangely calm. "Not today." One final effort shattered the crystal into 1,000 fragments. The tower collapsed, the breach sealed with a sound like the planet itself splitting asunder. I saw Nyctel's titanic silhouette dwindle into distant shadow. The half-gods, including the fragments of my crew, vanished with it, freed at last. Then I too faded. When awareness returned, there was nothing. No sound, no light, no substance. I drifted in an infinite ocean of darkness where even the concept of self began to dissolve. I was a solitary consciousness imprisoned between form and void. A subtle vibration stirred the emptiness. A presence, neither Nyctel nor anything benevolent. "You should not be here," it said, its voice neither loud nor soft, yet heavy as iron upon the soul. I only wanted to stop him, I thought, hoping it could hear. He would have devoured everything. "That is of no consequence," it replied, cold and indifferent. "You have meddled in things beyond your comprehension. Now you are caught." Flashes appeared, glimpses of alien worlds, of civilizations that never were, of possibilities Nyctel had grazed in its ascent. Then I saw the Eos intact, my crew alive and smiling as though nothing had ever happened. "It is illusion," I told myself. "It is as real as anything else," the voice answered. "Time is not linear here." For a moment, I almost reached for the illusion of home. Then the scene shifted. I stood before a diminished yet still colossal Nyctel, imprisoned within unseen walls. Its claws scraped at the barriers of its cage. "You believe you have defeated me," it snarled. "You merely delayed me. I am the void that fills all things." "Why then am I here?" I asked. "Why not destroy me?" "Because you are useful," Nyctel said, its presence coiling around me like a net. "You are my jailer and my key." I understood. It had not been fully banished. It endured through me, a human shard anchoring it to this plane. More fragments appeared. The half-gods, the devoured souls, thousands, perhaps millions, of minds trapped in the same limbo. human and utterly alien, all prisoners of its infinite will. In time, though time had no meaning, Nictel began to reach outward again, seeking its next host. I gathered what remained of my will and sent a final beacon of memory into the dark, the faces of my crew, the life I had left behind. Do not come here, I projected into the abyss. This place is not safe, it waits, it always waits. The darkness was no longer passive, it hungered. Nictel manifested once more, no longer the vast entity of before but an amorphous, pulsating mass of black fluid flesh studded with countless human eyes blinking in perfect unison, eyes of scientists, children, ancients. At its center gaped a maw of broken glass teeth glowing cold blue. Long tentacles ended in claws that rent reality itself. "You failed," it said, its voice a distorted chorus of devoured memories. "And now you shall be the final link." Before I could react, it reached, not merely for the explorers and half-gods, but for every living mind on Earth. I felt billions of souls silently screaming as they were dragged into the same limbo. Then it reached further still, into the realms of the dead, drawing ghosts of extinct civilizations, the souls of all who had ever lived, fusing them into itself. "You are the catalyst," it told me. "Without you, none of this would have been possible." Then the ultimate revelation. Nictel had never needed a portal. Everything, the crystal, my sacrifice, the tower's fall, had been distraction. "You never understood," it said, its voice now the dissonant harmony of billions. "I am not external. I am the doubt that gnaws at the back of your mind. I am the fear that keeps you awake. I am the emptiness you fill with hollow meaning. Your science, your faith, your art, all fuel." It began a final, terrible rite, drawing dark energy from every human soul, living and dead, into itself. I felt their personalities stripped away, replaced by fragments of Nictel. I ceased struggling. As the devoured souls stopped resisting, accepting the void, Nictel began to unravel. Its tentacles dissolved into ash. Its stolen eyes rotted and fell. It screamed, not in rage but in bewildered agony. "What is happening?" it cried, voice fragile. It was parasitic. It fed on despair, on the struggle for meaning. When that struggle ended, when we became emptiness without protest, it had nothing left to consume. "You cannot control us," I thought, calm and cold. "We are no longer human. We are merely shards of the same void you are." With that acceptance, Nictel collapsed entirely, its colossal form dissolving into dust, its screams swallowed by silence. Yet I was not freed. I became part of the dissolution. My body, my mind, my soul, everything scattered into the same hungry dark. If anyone ever finds this message, know that it is already too late. I am no longer Marcus Davis. I am only an echo of the void, a fragment of something far greater, far worse. And if you are reading this, you are already part of it. There is no escape.